Well, good Monday evening. It is September 11th, 2023. We have this Tropics update, but of course, I want to definitely mention it is Patriots Day, and we remember what happened back in 2001. So our hearts and our prayers and our remembrances go out to everybody impacted by what happened 22 years ago. All right, now let's get into the tropical update because we have just passed the traditional peak of hurricane season, which is September 10th. But we still have about 57% of the activity yet to go. Even though we're more than 3 months into this hurricane season, you can see there's a lot more activity. It's sort of backloaded for the months of September and October. So we still have a ways to go. And you can see even into October, we usually get this little secondary peak about mid-October. So a lot of time to go here through this hurricane season. And we have several things that we're watching. Of course, we have Hurricane Lee, which has been fluctuating. It was a Category 5, went down to a 4, to a 3, to a 2. Now it's back up to a 3, and it's right here where it's about a week or so away, 6 days or so away from making landfall or infecting the U.S. East Coast. And that, again, is based on the average cyclone speed. Right now, Lee is a little bit slower than average. In the next couple of days, it is going to move very slowly before it starts to make that turn off towards the north. The computers, the long-range models have been very good at forecasting, but there's still some questions as we get towards the end of the week, especially for parts of New England and coastal Canada, because there could still be some significant impacts, say from Massachusetts and the Cape all the way up certainly towards Nova Scotia. So we have Hurricane Lee. We now have Hurricane Margot. We expected Tropical Storm Margot to strengthen into a hurricane, and it's just going to sort of sit out here in the central Atlantic for the next week. So not something we'll focus on too much. And of course, we have a couple other areas that we're watching. This little area, that is an area of investigation, slight chance of development over the next several days. A little better chance for this one. We'll have to watch this one as we go a couple of weeks away from now, because that could possibly become our next named storm, which I believe is Nigel on the list. So again, that is well off the coast of Africa and a long ways away. Here's the latest on Lee. Again, it's been fluctuating in strength, likely undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle, getting a little bit of some wind shear here on the western side. You can see that if we take a look at that center of circulation, a lot of the activity here is, and a lot of the cloud cover is on the east and southerly side. So we still have those winds coming in, and it looks like that the wind shear will decrease a little bit as we head through tonight and into the day tomorrow. So we're looking at the likelihood of some slight strengthening of Lee here. So we head into Tuesday, winds of 120 miles per hour. Then we get that curve to the north. It gets picked up by the trough in the east, the cold front that's going to push through, and that'll accelerate it off towards the north. Now, at first glance, of course, good news that the storm is going to weaken. It's going to move over some colder waters as it moves here just west of the island of Bermuda. But as it weakens, it'll also grow larger. So while it will be a weaker storm, it will impact a greater area. So this could impact areas, say, all the way from the Delmarva all the way up into Nova Scotia, even as the storm passes by. Now, it's a given. From the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, all the way up the East Coast, we're going to see rough surf. We're going to see high waves. We're going to see that beach erosion, likely along Highway 12. Some overwash is possible for the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And of course, our big concern is as we get into this upcoming weekend from, say, Long Island all the way up towards Nova Scotia and points northward of some significant impacts there, especially if this pushes up towards the Bay of Fundy there just west of Nova Scotia. That could really push a lot of water and cause some issues there. And even through Maine and coastal parts of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts could be some significant issues there as well. And you can see still pretty locked in here with the European ensemble models. Again, these are the models we run at 50 different times and get 50 different scenarios, and that sort of gives us an idea of our confidence. But you'll notice what happens as we move into next week. A couple of the models do bring it here across parts of Rhode Island or Massachusetts and up here into New England. Very, very focused here towards the Bay of Fundy and Nova Scotia and Newfoundland eventually as it works its way off towards the north and east. That's the European model. The American model is a little more spread out here, with one bringing it all the way over here. This could be the outlier, or this could possibly be the right solution, but this green line is sort of the average. You'll notice that brings it here off the coast of Maine, and certainly that would be the center. If the storm is, quite large here, it would impact areas all the way from New York up towards Nova Scotia. So again, a lot of things that we still have to really fine tune in that forecast towards the end of the week. Florida, southeast coastline, you're not going to see a direct hit from this storm, of course. None of the models are saying that. And even really for the mid-Atlantic, it's really once we get, say, from New Jersey and points northward that we really start to focus our attention. And the big area that we're really looking at right now, of course, is around Nova Scotia. And these are the fine-tuned models specifically for hurricanes. And again, a few of them do bring it. There has been this little trend here in all of the models as we head towards the end of the weekend, kind of do this little S curve in here to kind of bring it a little bit closer to the U.S. coastline as we move towards the end of the week. So all of the models are sort of hinting at maybe it'll get a little bit closer to the U.S. before it makes its way up into southeastern Canada. So still some fine tuning to the forecast for the end of the week. So if you're watching this video and you're from, Long Island, all the way up towards Maine, or if you're watching us from Canada, still something that you will have to watch very, very closely. Again, it'll be a much weaker storm, but it will still likely be pushing those waves that it has when it was back to a Category 4 or 5. So it can still do quite a bit of damage here with some storm surge. It will be weaker, but it'll affect a much larger area. So again, that is the big concern as we head towards the end of the week and into early next week. So something that we're watching here very, very closely. This is, again, the European model. We take, again, this is what we call the deterministic, or this is the official computer forecast for the storm. And here's Margot out here. Carries it off towards the north here, just west of Bermuda. This takes us into Friday at 2 o'clock, almost due east here of Cape Hatteras. Here's Margot still spinning around. This is that one area that I said might become Nigel that we'll have to watch. That's down here in the intertropical convergence zone. So you can see here as we head into Sunday, the European model brings it ashore here close to the Bay of Fundy. Margot's still out there, and potentially Nigel is something that we'll have to watch. Again, that is a long ways away. This takes us into Sunday as we head into the weekend. The American model, there's Margot, here's Lee, 2 o'clock, a little farther to the north. It speeds it up a little bit faster, and notice it brings it still close to Nova Scotia, not quite as far west as the European model, but still same sort of idea. And there's Nigel that will still, or potentially Nigel, that we'll still have to watch. So from the Delmarva southward, main impacts will be the rough surf, the rip currents, and the high waves. North from there, especially Long Island through New England and up certainly into eastern Canada, those are the big areas of concern. Still a lot of question marks about what could happen exactly, whether we get that little turn a little more towards the west towards the end of that forecast period. Again, that's something we're watching. So let's get back to that model here, or the actual forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. I'll advance through all the graphics again just to kind of show you how even the National Hurricane Center brings it here, due north. You can sort of see how that little hash mark, and then kind of brings it a little bit closer. You can see even with the cone, we get a little bit of that turn to the west. So as we get towards Saturday and this weekend, something we will certainly be watching closely. We'll have updates every day online until the threat is gone, and then we'll likely have to turn our attention eventually down the line towards Nigel.